proof Asmongold is wrong about Google and indexing. It's not that he's wrong, we just don't know. So Asmond was too committed to that as the outcome. It still could have happened. This is something that I see a lot online, is that people get too committed to one or the other outcome. They both could have happened, and sometimes they're just as likely as each other. Welcome back to my series on how to think like a scientist, where we take everyday current affairs or hot topic issues, and then we try and analyse them in the way that a scientist would, and just see if it gives us any clarity on the issue. Does it help us make better decisions, or does it not help us at all? I think it's the former, obviously. That's why I'm making the series. Today we're looking at the website DEIdetected.com, because there was claims that it was being censored by Google. And I had this great video planned on how to go through it, how to have your control variables, how to have the thing that you're measuring, and how to come up with a two-tailed hypothesis. But then it's working. If we go to Google, so we'll type in that site colon DEIdetected.com, and bam, it's there. So we don't need these other search engines now, we get rid of all of them. Yeah, so we can kind of talk about this instead, like what possibly could have happened, what was most likely to have happened, and so on. What I did like with Asmond's approach from Asmongold is that he actually did make a really good attempt at doing it scientifically, and he was right about most things. He just didn't quite go the final step, and he made a bit too much speculation without the evidence. And this is something I commonly see on the internet, even among good thinkers, even among scientists, actually, that when it comes to a political issue or something where emotions are involved, people make conclusions ahead of their data, and you have to be really careful about doing that. The first thing you have to do as a researcher is be aware of what your biases are and be aware of your knowledge gaps. And then if you have the time, you need to go and fill those knowledge gaps. And if you don't have the time, you at the very least need to bring in an expert to talk about it. And as well as talking to experts and as well as filling in your knowledge gaps, you would then do a literature review. And you might want to look into how Google indexing works, try and see if there's any commonly known pitfalls with it, see if there are any myths or misconceptions about it, so that you can better understand what might actually be going on, so that you can actually create that hypothesis. You can't really create that hypothesis without having enough information in the first place. So when we're talking, I mentioned earlier the two-tailed hypothesis, is because you want to find out, is DEIdetected.com being messed with or isn't it? So you want to find something where your hypothesis can then end up going both ways. It stops you committing to one thing and then trying to create an experiment, for example. If you're doing a lab study, you can create an experiment to pretty much show whatever you want. And so a two-tailed hypothesis tends to have a bit more power to it, and you can trust in the conclusions more because you're controlling for one of those biases already.
Google shadow ban DEI detected. Let me see what he says.
What's up, guys? I'm Cabrutus, and well, I made a post on Twitter earlier today, and one of the comments was this Reddit thread. It really drew my attention. I decided to make a video immediately after I saw it. This is gonna be the first time.
Right now, I'm like 80 to 90% sure it's happening.
So the error that Asmond's made there is that he's made a decision that it is happening based on no evidence. He hasn't, he does address these things, but he's just put he's made the assumption too early before he's got the data. So props to him for sorting out in a minute, but he should have done those things before saying I'm 80 to 90% sure that this is happening. Because the issue is that just because it's not searchable on doing the site colon, you don't actually know why it's doing that. There could be many reasons. So it could be that there is just a rogue operative within Google that's done it. It could be a company policy. It could be the website got caught up in some of their aggressive stuff they're doing at the moment, because it's related to AI. So they're de-indexing a lot of websites so that it doesn't get into the AI, and they could be using that as an excuse to de-index some websites that they deem not worthy to be on the platform. That's another assumption, basically, or it's another possibility that could happen. It could be that there was issues on the website end. Perhaps they didn't do something, but I'm not an expert in that field, so I don't know. Very few of us are, and we don't have access to the website itself to be able to get that information directly. So we have to rely on sort of secondary evidence by accessing the algorithm through the search engines, and there are different algorithms on the different search engines, and then seeing the feedback we get from the algorithms by searching for DEIdetected.com. And then we can make assumptions based on the feedback we're getting from the algorithm. But what we still don't know is for sure why this is happening. It could be the result of something else. We don't know that. You can't know the intentions of the person or people or the organization as to why it got de-indexed in the first place. So we don't know if this is active censorship or not. We don't know if it's a deliberate act in an Orwellian way. You need more damning evidence for that. You need to put the gun in their hand to be able to show that, yes, they did nuke that website. Okay, so now he's getting the evidence himself, which is good. Getting that first-hand evidence.
Yeah. No, he's right. He's right, bro. Like, yeah.
Okay, so he's not right that it's being censored. He's right that it's not coming up in the search. That's all you know at that stage. You just know that, okay, if I search for this specific website, all I get is the link backs or whatever. I don't know the terminology. I'm a psychologist, not a web developer. But you're getting all of the references to the website, but you're not getting the website itself, which suggests that it's de-indexed. So this is why in science we use terms like likely or probably or may or suggests or shows or hints, because you don't, it can sound a bit mealy-mouthed if you're not trained in it, I guess, but it's because you can't 100% commit. You don't know for sure unless you actually see, I don't know, for example, the file in Google or the memo that says de-index these websites, we need to nuke them into oblivion, blast them back to the Stone Age,
Try Bing. Okay. Well, I even without .com, it's number one.
Okay, so this is another good move, is you need to test it in the equivalent settings. So it's the different context, but using the same procedure. So it's basically, the design is you have all these participants, which are the search engines, and then you're inputting your variable, and then you're seeing what the reaction is from each of the participants, the search engines. And every search engine comes up as a positive, that the website comes up, and it's indexed on those websites. And at the time, it was doing all of it against Google. But of course, like I've said, it's now working on Google, which almost scuppered this bloody video. And don't get my intentions wrong here, okay? Like, this is a really important issue, which is why we have to be so careful. This is why I'm trying to teach people how to think like a scientist in everyday things, is because we need to know what censorship looks like when we see it. We need to know how to test for it, what the parameters are, because what tends to happen in society is that the power brokers or the holders of power will incrementally take your freedoms away, or they'll incrementally re-educate you, or in the UK we have something called the nudge unit. I'm not even sure if people are aware of that. It was freely available, the information was there, I just don't think many people knew about it. And so when they're building up things like censorship, this whole thing, that's another hypothesis, like, was this all a test? You know, to see how people respond to it. Do people notice it and all that stuff? It's possible, right? But that's just speculation. We don't know for sure. But we have to really care about this stuff. Though someone in Asmongold's video said, well, so what if it's been de-indexed? Why care about it? And it's like, well, it's because they're controlling the information that we can see. You're supposed to be able to go on the internet and find out anything that you want to find out about anything ever. It's supposed to be the repository, the sum of all human knowledge is on the internet, right? And then so we have to be careful that when we have a near monopoly, like this monolith of Google, controlling what we see and abusing those privileges, potentially, I mean, then we have to know that it's happening. And then this is why I care so much about instances like this, is that we have to get this right, and we have to be careful about how we speculate about it, how we control our language and how we word it when talking to other people. Because like I say, the website's working now. We don't entirely know for sure. I'm about to show you a video in a minute from an ex-web developer. I watched his video, and it was basically a 5-minute lesson on 2 items that I didn't know existed that could have influenced the website being de-indexed. And so if there are these unknown unknowns, to borrow a phrase, things that we don't even know about that could have influenced what we're looking at, so we need to educate ourselves better and try and find other possibilities that might give us our answer, because then when it really does happen, we're aware of what all the variables could be, how things could have gone wrong or right, and how they might be censoring stuff. If we're educated on the kind of things, the tools at their disposal to do it, then we'll be able to say, well, no, because you are censoring us because of X, Y, and Z, and then you know that because of the times when we thought it was censorship and it wasn't. Anyway, I think you get my meaning. But here's this other guy. Asman actually spoke to him in the stream. Go look for this video by Nuon. DEIdetected.com is not being censored by Google, brackets probably, that's the key word there. And to him there are two main things. I think it's the second thing. Okay, so effectively, I'll just summarize it because I don't want to take away from his video too much, because I'm not an expert in it and you should just watch his video. Basically, websites have this page called robots.txt, and it helps the page be indexed, basically, and DEIdetected.com doesn't have that, and it didn't have it 20 minutes ago when I looked. And then the second, so that could have been messing with it being indexed. The fact it is now indexed again without that, so my conclusion is basically that it's probably not that. What I think it most likely is this last thing he mentions.
Someone made about the attack mode. If you remember, if you go on DEIdetected.com, you can see this thing, personal security. Also going to open a page source real quick before it continues myself. This is just a little protection against DDoSing. Okay,
so I personally think it was that attack mode thing. I'm only 60% sure of that. I'm not going to commit myself to it. To me, that just seems the most likely, because it sounded like it was for a set time frame, and then it passed, and then it was fine, and it was working again. Okay, so just in closing, none of this is an attack on anybody I spoke about in the video. I'm just trying to help people think like a scientist. I think I conveyed that through the video. One of the things I disagree with is where people have here, like, proof Asmongold is wrong about Google and indexing. It's not that he's wrong, we just don't know. So Asmond was too committed to that as the outcome. It still could have happened. Google still could have unindexed it and then re-indexed it. You know, that is something that could have happened. We don't know. And then so people are basically, this is something that I see a lot online, is that people get too committed to one or the other outcome for something when they both could have happened. And sometimes they're just as likely as each other. In this case, I think it's more likely that it was the attack mode. But again, Asmund might not be wrong, and then people have to remember that. Anyway, so I've been Chris, this is Stat Bites, and I hope you check out my other videos. Catch you later.